All right, I'm back. Yeah, I've been kicking around ideas. I've got a million ideas, but actually sitting down and following through with them is kind of challenging, apparently. Um, so I thought I'd start off kind of easy on this one. This one we're gonna do story time with Bitey Mouse. We're gonna talk about cryptids. I have seen cryptids. Um, So that's kind of my story I'm going to be talking about in this one. So the cryptid I have seen is called the not deer, which basically it looks like a deer until it doesn't. I've got some notes on the actual myth, and then I will explain my two experiences with them. So originally the not deer were located in the Appalachian Mountains. That's where the bulk of sightings are, but they're everywhere. So the traditional stats for this particular cryptid is that it's larger than a regular deer, akin to like a moose. It's incredibly fast. It has the forward-facing predator eyes. Predator eyes are forward-facing, as that says, whereas prey animals have the eyes on the side of the head because it gives them a greater range of sight without having to move their heads. And the last one is that they can walk on their hind legs. Now, the two that I saw, none of that applies to. So I grew up in a very small town. My grandparents, my mom's parents, lived in a tiny village, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Like, it's so small it doesn't even have a population sign. It just has a sign that says that particular town's name, and if you blink, you missed it. But my mom's dad, so my grandfather through my mom's lineage, most of his family lives in this little village area. And so when we'd go out there just to hang out with the family, it was not unusual for all of us cousins and all of us children to just have free reign of this entire town. I mean, I'm trying to think how many, like, I would say 50% of the town I was related to. Which again sounds like a bunch, but you gotta remember this is less than 100 individuals living there. But yeah, so I was walking down to my great aunt's house. She was a badass lady. Miss her very much, but she made everything from scratch. So like biscuits and stuff like that. There was no store-bought anything in that house. She also raised chickens and had cattle for a while too, and had no problem taking out various venomous snakes that we had in the area, or any of the snakes that would harm her chickens. We learned very quickly not to mess with her chickens. And she made the absolute best wild plum jelly and blackberry jelly that my brother really liked. But anyways, so that whole backstory, so I can get to this story. So I'm probably 7, 8 years old as I'm walking down one of the little dirt roads to go to her house. And I see this doe. And it looks 100% like a deer. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, that's really awesome. And then it moves. And I'm trying to think of the best way. It's like its front legs didn't have joints. So if you've seen the Dark Crystal movie, the Landstriders, and then if you've seen any of the videos of individuals cosplaying four-legged animals, so they have the stilts for the front legs, and so those legs really don't bend like they're supposed to. That's what this deer did. And I mean, I grew up country. I've been around coyotes. I've come up on bobcats. I've come up on, trying to think, skunks, feral hogs, feral dogs, which are some of the worst to come across. Feral hogs aren't a walk in the park either, but I'd rather come across feral pigs than feral dogs. But none of those have triggered my fight or flight mode as much as this one deer that wasn't a deer. I mean, my lizard brain is just screaming at me that this is wrong. I need to leave. I need to flee. Like, I even get now where I usually get goosebumps anytime I tell these stories because it still affects me. And it's been a while since I was 7 or 8. I just sprinted to my grandmother's house and just flew in the house. I went and took a shower because even though I didn't make any physical contact with this animal, just the fact that I had been in its presence made me feel like I was contaminated and I needed to just get the ick off. Which my grandparents are looking at me like, it's the middle of the day. Why is she taking a shower? So I get out and I'm explaining what I saw to my grandmother, who is full-blooded Scot, knew about the fair folk, and that we do not interact with the fair folk unless we absolutely have to. So she told me that that was probably a fairy deer, that I did the right thing leaving, because the last thing you want to do is follow those anywhere they decide to go, because that's how people disappear. So she didn't, went over that. It's a fey deer, you need to leave it alone. And I'm like, dude, with the way my body reacted, you do not have to worry about me going and playing with this particular creature. Then the second one I saw, I had moved up here to the big DFW area to go to college. And so I was driving from college back to my hometown. And there's this one stretch of road right before I get to the village area that my grandparents lived in. And there's no cell service. I mean, even to this day, there's still sections of that road that there's zero cell service. But I'm driving along, it's nighttime. The drive usually takes about 3 hours. So yeah, it was taking a while to get home. But as I'm coming around this curve, I see this beautiful buck. I mean, the hunter in me was so jealous. I'm like, dude. But I'm driving and then I'm like, dude, don't run in front of my car. Don't run in front of my car. I don't want to hit this animal. Beyond the whole injuring an animal and then I'm going to have to put it out of its misery. Deer do extensive damage to vehicles. And so I'm like, please, please, please don't run. And then it runs. And again, I'm hit with that. It's not right. Whereas the first knot deer that I saw didn't have the right joints in its front legs. This one had too many. And so the leg was almost fluid and the way it would just way it was running. And again, I was hit with that immediate, I need to leave. I do not need to be here. I don't want to be here. I need to get as far away from this animal as I possibly can because it's not right. Like, I can't get that across enough as to how unsettling this animal was because it wasn't right. But yeah, got home and immediately took a shower because again, just seeing it made me feel contaminated. And yeah, I grew up country. I grew up hunting and being around hunters and stuff like that. Some people hypothesize that the knot deer phenomenon is created by deer that have chronic wasting disease, which is a horrible disease. I have seen plenty of deer with it. That's not the same as the knot deer. I've also seen deer that have had horrific injuries at some point in their life, and they are still perfectly capable of taking care of themselves. So it's not even one of those. These are not natural. I guess is the best way to put it. Um, but yeah, the not deer. Like, it still makes me squeamish. And the only other way I can explain as to being close to how much just innate fear these two animals invoked in me. I used to volunteer at a big cat and bear sanctuary. So, I mean, working with lions, tigers, cougars, pumas. Oh, cougars and pumas are the same thing, Doug, Mighty Mouse. Jaguars, bobcats, servals, ocelots, amur leopards, snow leopards. I think that's it. And then we also had grizzly bears, black bears, Asian black bears. I think that's it for those as well. But one time I was cleaning one of the outside enclosures. Again, I'm on the outside of the enclosure. We never went into the actual enclosures unless that animal was locked off in another part of its enclosure. It was just one of those fail safes, because it doesn't matter how much you think you have bonded with this animal or how excited the animal is to see you. It's still a wild animal. It's still a predator. And so we would never take risk like that. And so I'm over there, I was raking up leaves or something, and I had my back to the enclosure that this extremely friendly tiger is in. And I mean, he does the happy chuffing, the tiger moans that they do as a friendly greeting. So I didn't think anything of it, and I'm just raking and raking. And then the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I turned around. And so consciously, I did not hear anything. And then I turn around, and there's this tiger leaping at me. And for that moment, I forgot that there was a fence between us. And I was like, well, that's kind of a badass way to go out, so I'm okay with this. And then he hits that chain link and then just stares at me, and I'm like, and then he went back to his chuffing and being happy and stuff like that. But because I had my back to him, that triggered his predator response. In that moment, before I realized that there was fencing between us, that's like a level 5 on fear. Whereas the not deer are level 10s, guaranteed. I mean, I didn't have that visceral, I'm contaminated, I need to go home and clean. I'm going to throw up because it's so not correct. But yeah, so that is my experience with the two not deer. Tell me, have y'all seen any cryptids? I would love to hear your stories or read your comments. But yeah, and since I kind of touched on it in this one, I will be doing a video in the future about why I do not interact with the fair ones, and my rules of engagement when I do come across them. And that will be based off of the things my Scottish grandmother taught me and her rules of engagement with them and stuff of that nature. But yeah. All right, I hope you have a great day.